Hello, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, the world, the globe, anybody who is viewing this. Today is, what is today's date? The 18th of April, 2021, Sunday. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, an agent of love and hope and healing on planet Earth at this time and space called now. We're here as we are every week, hoping to bring some hope, some encouragement, some love, and to support us in our process of living life on planet Earth as human beings, trying to figure this thing out and doing so in an empowered way. So we do a lot of focus on healing. Sometimes I'm just talking, sometimes actually doing healing over the internet. Through the Facebook Lives and through the YouTube Lives. We're actually always open to do that, whether we have a specific topic we're focusing on for that day or not. Hey, what's crack-a-lackin', Jennifer Bliss? Good to see you, as always. So today is one of those days that we do have a topic. There is something that's just on my heart. You know, I really do believe, as you can see on the screen, that we really are all one people. That we're all one people, independent of all of the things that tend to cause us to feel separated from one another. That we are all one people. We're all connected. We're all, as I often say, drops of water from the ocean of God. We're all coming from the same ocean. We might be located in different parts of the ocean. The droplet of water that we are might look a little bit different, might sound a little bit different, might behave a little bit differently in some contexts. But we're all drops of water from the same ocean. We're all one people. Okay. Now, although we truly are all one people, we haven't really been living like that so much, have we? If we can just be real about it for a second. Okay. And so our context for today is a message of hope and healing in the midst of racial dissent. And really, I'm saying racial dissent, but I could have also included gender dissent or other categories. This was just kind of on my heart to share for today, and to address with regard to today and some recent things that have been taking place. Many of you know that right now it's coming to the close of the case against former officer Derek Chauvin, who sat with his knee on the neck of George Floyd for roughly 9 minutes until breath stopped entering his body. We know that this past week just recently, there was this 13-year-old boy who was killed by the police. There was the Caucasian officer, female officer that killed a black man, said, "Oh, I thought that it was my taser." Somebody's been police officer for 26 years. They train other police officers, and they don't know the difference between a gun and a taser. That does not hold water at all. And so I've got this background going on, because you see people in this background that are from different ethnic backgrounds, right? Different genders, different even religious backgrounds. You see suggestion of that. We all exist in this earth, and I'm broadcasting from the United States. Not everybody who tunes in is necessarily from the United States, but I'm broadcasting from here. And there are certain particular things that take place here, but those things and similar types of things take place in many, many, many other parts of the world as well, right? And so I'm a healer. I'm a minister of healing, an agent of healing and hope, and an advocate of oneness and love, right? And I really do believe that beyond being a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, a Christian, a Muslim, black, white, Asian, Latinx, whatever the case might be, that beyond all of those things, we're first and foremost human. And even beyond that, we're first and foremost spirit housed in a body. And yet I'm very, very clear that I am living in the context of this life over these past few decades as a man who is recognizably and unapologetically a soul animating the body of a black man. Okay. And so there are definitely certain things that I'm particularly aware of. There are certain things that I'm particularly sensitive to in that context. And so that does help to inform some of the ways that I approach this sense of oneness and promoting a sense of healing and oneness. And there are a lot of times where I'm really dealing a lot more with the individual level, maybe dealing with an individual who's got back pain, or an individual who's dealing with neuropathy or arthritis, or an individual who is dealing with, with the fact that there are parts of the body that just aren't functioning the way that they once did. That consists of a lot of what I do, yes. But that's only a part of what I do. I don't want to see anybody in physical pain because I know that people don't have to be, despite what the doctors may say, or despite what the prognosis may be. I know better. And so if I can help somebody to experience what we refer to as medical miracles, I'm very happy to do that. That is part of my purpose. That is part of my passion. But really, that's not the end game for me. That's not the ultimate goal. No, I don't want to see people suffering, and I don't want to see people in pain. And I thank God that I've been put in a position to help free people from suffering in that way, on that individual level. But really, quite frankly, that's not the totality of my mission or my purpose, or even ultimately the focus of it. That is, if you look, and I've been blessed to work with people from all different backgrounds, ethnically, from all different religious backgrounds, from all different educational levels, political affiliations, ideologies, economic background, educational level, all those different things that sexual orientation, all the things that we use to keep us separated. I've worked with people and even taught and trained people in terms of spiritual principles along those lines. And I'm thankful that I am a person who has no question that God is a miracle worker. And I have no question about that because I've been blessed to demonstrate God as a miracle worker over and over again. Hey, Berhinda, glad to see you here on today, my sister. So that is something that's important to me, and these medical miracles, if you will, there's some value in that. But like I said before, I do come from the context of being a minister. And you look at scriptures and you see miracles that were done. Regardless of what scripture you're looking at, you can see evidence of miracles being done. Whether it is a miracle of healing, whether it is alchemy turning one substance into another substance, like water into wine, or base elements like like iron and lead into silver and gold, whatever the miracle, uh, the parting of waters or any of those things, the miracle is not of the greatest significance in and of itself. The point of the miracle is to get people's attention, and to get people's attention in order to deliver the message. And so, yes, God blesses me to be able to help people experience medical miracles. But again, that's not the end game. The end game is to get people's attention to hear the message. And what is the message? The message is that we really are all one. And it's really important that we get over ourselves and beyond those areas that keep us from being able to live and experiencing that, and to allow ourselves to be fully expressed souls living in bodies in harmony and love with one another, right? Okay. So the master Yeshua, Jesus, quoting Moses, said the greatest of commandments is to love God with everything that's in you. And the second one is pretty much the same thing. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You know, this is really what the whole thing is really all about. Okay. And so we see these instances, and I know that there's some people who do not believe that systemic racism is a thing. Okay. I know that there are some people who do not believe that things are actually happening, and believe that it's just the media that's presenting a spin on things. And let me tell you something. I know about the media. I know that the media is based on creating ratings much more than they are on um, uh, sharing information and sharing truth. Hey, what's going on, Melanie? Good to see you today. Happy Sunday to you. I'm aware of that, and yet that doesn't mean that there aren't still things that are happening that are portrayed in the news or the various forms of media that are true, right? I've known of people who have said that that they believe that the situation that happened last May with George Floyd was that he was a trauma actor, that the person never really died, right? And I believe that there are people who genuinely believe that. I am not one of those people. And what I would say is that even if that was the case, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of situations that never made it into the news that were equally as horrific, right? They were equally as horrific. And if you've ever been pulled over for DWB, as I have, some of you will automatically know what that is. Some of you may not. Is driving while black. I've been pulled over and searched for drugs and asked almost a dozen times if I had drugs on me, if I sold drugs, if I used to sell drugs. I was on my way to seminary at the time. Okay. Or if you've been in a store and been racially profiled, or whatever the case might be. Not everybody has that experience, but I do encourage all of us to be sensitive to the fact that other people have experiences that you may not have. I do want to encourage all of us to be open-minded enough and open-hearted enough to be able to have a sense of compassion and a sense of peace and a sense of empathy for those who have struggles that are different than our own. And the reality is that everybody living on this little rotating sphere called the Earth, all 7 billion of us, are going to have some trials, are going to have some difficulties, are going to have some experiences of pain along the process of our life path while we're living on this earth. And while we might not all have the same exact experience, we might not have it show up looking identical to the pain and the challenge that another person might experience. Hopefully, we can rise in our own sense of humanity and be able to appreciate the challenges that another person might face, even though it may be very, very, very different to our own experience, right? Right? And so in this work of healing that I'm blessed to participate in, most of the people that I work with aren't in the same physical location that I'm in. Okay. There are people who look different than me. There are people who worship different than me. There are people whose politics are different than mine. There are people who have a different socioeconomic background than I do. There are people who, oops, pulled off my mic, sorry about that. There are people who may operate in life very different than I do. People who may have very different stories than what I have and different life experiences than what I have. But it doesn't change the fact of the healing happening, right? It doesn't change the fact of the healing happening. And really, the idea is that hopefully on some level, we'll see this person reaching out to this person, different part of the world, different life experience, different religion, different socioeconomic status, different set of belief systems, different ethnic background, and help that person to experience a medical miracle. I've been seeing this happen for a couple decades now, folks. Hopefully, in the midst of that, it's conveying the idea that we really are all one. And Jennifer, if you're still here, you've been through at least level 1 of the Transcending the Matrix training. And you know that the essence of the healing, what really brings the healing about is love. The power of pure love is what ends up bringing the healing about. Okay. Now that's on a personal level, but it's also on an individual level, but it's also on the collective level, right? And there are some things that are conveyed that try to keep us at odds with each other. Have you ever heard of the concept of divide and conquer? Right? And so, yeah, there are things that are being done by forces of evil in high places. There are people who have a certain degree of power, and they believe that they can maintain their power by keeping other people divided. Okay. Every conflict that takes place on the earth is really a struggle for energy, right? It's a struggle for energy. Another way that could be said is a struggle for power. Struggle for energy, struggle for power. We live as long as we have energy. When the body runs out of energy, we leave the planet. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. And so there are people who have been in positions of power, very small numbers of people who've been in positions of power, who try to consciously and intentionally keep people at each other so that they're distracted, so they can do whatever it is that they want to do without being questioned in the process. All right. And there's some things that we can do to not buy into that, right? There's some things that we can do to not buy into that. There's a lot of stuff in terms of the way that media is portrayed. There's a lot of stuff. And when I say media, I'm not just talking about the news. I'm talking about television shows. I'm talking about movies, all of that. Social media, all of that. Okay. We can consciously choose to not buy into or to not actually financially support programming that that produces a negative narrative of people of color, for instance. Okay, there's a lot of it that's out there. There are people of all ethnic backgrounds who do jacked up stuff. You know, I'm not going to deny that's the case. That includes Black folks, but it's certainly not limited to Black folks. There are also people of all ethnic backgrounds that are doing some wonderful, some beautiful things. Some people who are highly intelligent, caring, compassionate people who are giving their lives to help make this planet a better place for themselves and for others. Okay. And my hope is that we will actually, where you give your money is where you give your power, where you give your attention is where you're giving your energy, AKA is where you're giving your power. Okay. What is it that you want to give your energy to? In other words, what is it that you want to give your power to? Right? Think about that for a minute. Okay. Do we want to give our energy or our power to that which tears us down and tears other people down? Or do we want to give our energy and our power to that which uplifts? Okay. To that which ultimately uplifts us all. The king was very apropos when he said that we'll have to come to the realization that we're all either going to learn to live together as brothers, and I'm going to add the word and sisters, or perish together as fools. And that's a reality. He talked about how we're all caught up in this inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny, how whatever affects one affects us all. Whatever affects one individually impacts us all collectively. We know that a threat to, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. These things are things that we can see as cliche. These are things that we can, put out there as sound bites. But, I think about the scripture that says, be not hearers of the word only, but doers also. So how can we find ways to actually incorporate these truths in the active living of our lives? Okay, we can do that on an individual level, but I believe that I'm a person who's here to help engage a sense of equanimity amongst the human beings on planet Earth, that we really are all one. And in key documents within our nation's focal point in history alleges that all men, and I'm going to again modify that to all humans, are created equally and endowed with certain inalienable rights, among which are the pursuit of our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Okay. And yet there are people in this country who at one point in time were not even considered, according to the constitutional, wholly human, but only 3/5 human. And that was only to be able to benefit from delegate votes in election, the electoral college, which was a way of keeping other people disempowered while maintaining a false sense of being empowered amongst a certain group, right? Now, I feel like I could sit on my soapbox on this for a while. I'm perspiring and stuff. I didn't mean to be working up a sweat over here, but I am passionate about some things. And one of the things that I consider myself to be an understanding and a compassionate person. And there's also BS that I get tired of in my humanity. There's BS that I get tired of, and continually seeing evidence that a person who has the blessing of melanated skin, that their, or our, I really should say, lives are of less value than those who have lesser pigmented skin. And the reality is that race is a man-made construct. There's only one race in reality, and that's the human race on this planet. Okay. But we propagate all of this negativity, and there's all of this chaos that is stirred up and ensues as a function of false teachings that are being propagated. All right. I'm all about that oneness, baby. All about that truth and love and harmony and peace. Okay. And a sense of authentic empowerment. People do not have power by having Power is not something you have over other people. It's something that you have within yourself. It's never about having power over somebody else. Okay. Anyway, I want to check in with you guys. Step on off my soapbox for a moment. I want to check in with you all. How are you all doing out there? What's going on with you all? What's on your hearts and on your minds? I'd love to hear in the comments your take on just what you've been experiencing over the last week or so, or the last year or so, or the last several decades or so, as it relates to and the topic for today was really racial dissent, but that could really go beyond just the ethnic divide. It manifests itself not in terms of the terminology racial, but it manifests itself in terms of gender. It manifests itself in terms of whatever the dominant culture is. That thing which is held at whatever particular point in time is of more value or of more significance. Okay. So let me hear from you all. How are you all doing out there? What's going on? What is weighing on you, or what are you feeling hopeful about regarding this topic? I don't want to just sit here and sound like the angry black man at the injustice of the man. I really am about love and light, but I'm also about calling out injustice and mistruth as well. That's part of being a light worker, part of being an agent of love and light. Okay, nobody has any comments right now? Okay, well, I don't see anybody putting any particular comments right now. I know that it is on a bit of a delay from the time that I say it until the time that that you actually hear what it is that I'm saying. But what I do want to do is I want to put some stuff out there. There are some things that can really be done to kind of switch some things, I feel like. And I want to put some of that stuff out there, hopefully not in a way that causes too much frustration. Hopefully you'll hear me out. And let me see what Melanie says. Definitely been introspective, and I'm in prayer for the world, especially the Black and brown experience. Yeah. You know what? I watched a couple movies this past week. I enjoy movies. And I watched a couple this week that they were not, the people in this movie live in worlds very, very different than the world that I live in. Hey, Angela, I need to give you a call. Didn't say what you said. The injustice is so heavy, I have to dig deep for love. I don't like having to do that. I hear you. I hear you, and I feel you on that. I really do. I really do. This kind of thing is really nothing new. There are things that are coming to the surface in a new way, but these things really aren't new. They didn't even start with the United States of America, although the ugliness definitely shows up in the United States of America. There is a lot of injustice. There is a lot of bigotry. There is a lot of misogyny. These things, not everybody necessarily can relate to. Not everybody believes that they actually exist, but there are certainly people who feel the weight of it. billions of people who feel the weight of it in a very real and tangible way. I was starting to say earlier that I watched a couple movies earlier this week. One of them was a movie called Bombshell. Bombshell or Bombshells? I think it was Bombshell. It was dealing with, ultimately, it was dealing with the experience of sexual harassment that was experienced by women, particularly white women, at the Fox News network. The other movie was a movie called Game Change, and it was dealing with the 2008 election from the standpoint of John McCain and Sarah Palin. And in both of these movies, the people represented lived in very, very different worlds than me. Okay. Some of the things I am in total disagreement with. Many of the topics and things of that nature, in total disagreement with. But I looked at both of these movies, and I really considered the pain that they were in, right? Really considered the pain that these people were in. These women who were well taken care of financially, didn't have that issue at all, didn't have that struggle, prospering financially, attractive, and a lot of things going for them, but also a lot of challenges too. Issues of self-esteem that were challenged as a result of situations and decisions. Thought about the people who were putting out all this negativity in the news, and the people who were guilty of the sexual harassment and abuse. By the way, there was a settlement that ended up being reached for all of these women that experienced this and had the courage to be whistleblowers in the situation. There were people who were forced into leaving the company who were guilty of the stuff, who also were cashed out. And they actually got more than the people who were the ones who experienced the injustice, which is an injustice in itself, right? But even those people had to consider their pain. Broken people do broken stuff. Broken people try to break other people down, right? It's easy. It's real easy to get frustrated, highly upset with people who are doing jacked up stuff, particularly if they're doing jacked up stuff to you and people who look like you. And so it's very easy for me to be upset with these folks. And I'm not saying that I wasn't. Where a little bit greater work comes is developing a sense of compassion and empathy for those folks too, right? I don't believe in just preaching something. I really am serious about practicing it too. There are people who have struggles that are very different than mine. I'm in tune with what mine are and what the struggles of people who look like me are. But there are other people who are dealing with their own struggles too. And I don't ask people to try to be sensitive to other people's struggles without trying to do the same, without genuinely endeavoring to do the same. And in both of those movies, like I said, people in very, very, very different worlds than mine. Very, very different worldview than what I have. But there is something that we have in common, and that is that we are human. And while my pain might not be somebody else's and somebody else's might not be mine, I encourage all of us to tap more deeply into our own sense of humanity. And in the tapping into our own sense of humanity, tap into the pain of others. I saw a documentary some time ago. It was a brother who was locked up in prison. And he had done some horrendous stuff, you know. And he was doing time for it. And he said that it was easy for him to do these things to other people. And he had his own struggles that led him to making those decisions that he ended up making, dealing with his own history of brokenness. And he was able to do the things that he was able to do to other people because he wasn't in touch with his own pain and brokenness, and he wasn't in touch with his own inner world. Okay. And so because he wasn't in touch with that, other people's pain didn't matter, right? Hurting other people didn't matter. Taking from other people didn't matter because he wasn't in touch with that within himself. He came to a point while in prison where he started doing some inner work and then got on the path of reform. But he first had to get in touch with a greater sense of humanity within himself to be able to appreciate what he had put other people through, right? Right? And so there are areas where we can all go deeper within ourselves, into places within our own heart, address the pain that's there, invite and welcome in the presence of the love of God into those spaces, the light of God into those places of darkness, of brokenness, of hurt, and of pain. And if you are human living on planet Earth, you have some of those places. That's part of the journey of coming here. I said last week, or maybe a couple weeks ago, you know, everybody who's living as a human being on planet Earth is a spiritual warrior, because really, in reality, no punks come here. There's some stuff that you're going to go through if you come to this planet in a human body. And the idea, the goal is to, in the midst of all of that, to still be able to maintain your sense of divinity, your sense of being a whole spiritual being. That was on Easter when I was speaking on that, actually. Okay. And we have work to do. We've all got some inner work to do, right? Each of us has some inner work to do. And what part of that inner work is looking within us to the places where we've not allowed the light of that love to shine brightly. Hey, Angela, Angel Life, welcome. I'm looking forward to catching your broadcast, by the way. We all have some places where we can go deeper within ourselves. And I'm telling you, as a person who embraces the experience of being on the planet as a healer, okay, I get to help people have medical miracles. There are times I see stuff in them that I'm able to address. And then there are times I hit a roadblock and I have to address stuff in me for their healing to manifest, right? And that's where all of us really are, whether we take that on or not. But if you want to be a courageous soul on planet Earth, really walking out your spiritual journey, I encourage you to do the same. And every time we get pissed off at somebody else who's doing some stupid stuff that's not right, there's a place that we can go to within ourselves that can bring healing, not only to the people who look like us, but to the broken people who are hurting people who look like us, right? Or that we think are doing things that are hurting us, depending on where you are on the spectrum, or what side of the fence you're on in terms of a particular experience. And so years ago, this was when I was still living in Detroit. There was a store, Black Star Bookstore on Livernois in Detroit, just north of 7 Mile. There was a group of people with whom I happen to share a demographic that met dealing specifically with things that Black men deal with. Okay. And the name of that group is called the Black Men's Forum. Okay. And and we would meet and we'd support each other and aim to do so with a certain level of consciousness and insight, not anybody being a victim or seeing themselves or anyone else as a victim, but really looking towards genuine, authentic empowerment. Okay. And so there was a situation where the person who was actually the facilitator of the group had a family, excuse me, had a family situation going on where his wife's brother had some tough stuff going on. This gentleman is also married to a Black woman. Her brother, therefore, is also Black. And he actually happened to have married a white woman. Okay. And the experience was, she was originally from South Carolina. They were at the time living in Nevada. The husband, the wife, and their children were living in Nevada. They had received a call from the wife's mother to to come to South Carolina. They left. They had not been having anything to do with the family because there were some issues dealing with the racial divide and some ugliness that came up with regard to that. And they're kind of disowning the daughter for marrying this Black man and all of this. Okay. I'm glad I don't have that in my family. I have a very ethnically diverse family. I have a very ethnically diverse family, and I'm glad that isn't part of my family experience. I thank God for that. At any rate, the mother-in-law in South Carolina reached out to her daughter, saying that I really want to be able to have a relationship with my grandchildren. I miss being able to have a relationship with my grandchildren. I'd like to kind of try to make things right or whatever. She ended up having a conversation with the husband. Asked, "What's your dream? What is it that you've always wanted to do?" And he said that it was really his dream to open up a restaurant. This woman happened to have been of means in South Carolina. She said, "What? Tell you what," because again, she's wanting to be able to have an opportunity to have a relationship with the grandchildren and such. And she says, "Tell you what, you all go ahead and come here. I'll go in with you on this restaurant. I can put some money up front to get this endeavor started, and then once it's really going, you can just do it completely on your own. Okay, and so they ended up. They said, I even I've got vehicles for you all, got a place for you to stay. Just come. I really want to be able to have you all here so I can have an opportunity to have a relationship with my grandchildren. So they got there. They were staying in this house. They did have a vehicle. And then things started happening. Um, the 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 mother started making comments in front of the children about would you have to go marry? And I'm gonna go ahead and say the word because it's the real deal of what was said. She said, would you have to go marrying a nigga for anyway? If you had to marry one, you could have at least married one with some money, but you married a nigga and a broke one at that. And she's saying this in front of the children. The children are hearing this, putting them in a very uncomfortable position. The situation was that they were living in an area in the boonies where you essentially had to travel through clan territory just to get to where there was a fair degree of civilization, so to speak. Okay. She took the vehicles under the guise of, getting some work done on the vehicle. And at this point, the husband and wife are feeling very, very unsafe. There have been some threats that were made. They were feeling very, very unsafe, to the point where they were taking turns sleeping at night, where one would sleep and the other one would keep watch, because they were fearful for their lives, and that of their family. So this brother, who was a facilitator of this group that I was in, brought that to the body, and we actually did some healing work on it. Fortunately, I was in a position to kind of facilitate this, and we did some healing. Excuse me. We did some healing on it. We addressed his wife's brother and his family's situation, and brought light and love to their experience, but we also had to address the mother-in-law, right? And bring light and love to her experience. All right. This was on a Tuesday night. Thursday, he got word, the brother who's the facilitator of the group got word that the mother-in-law totally went in a different direction. She said, I know that I was wrong. I was out of order. I understand that you all will not feel comfortable being here anymore. And actually supported them moving away. And at that time, just a couple days later, they were actually in Florida, I believe, where I am now. I'm not sure where in Florida. This was years and years and years ago. But that was something beautiful. To me, that was something beautiful that happened. What happened before that was ugly. No doubt about it, it was ugly. Okay. But we addressed the pain on both sides. It was important to address the pain on both sides, because the reality is that there is pain on both sides. Whether you support Black Lives Matter or whether you support Make America Great Again, there's pain on both sides. Okay? Whether you're a Black nationalist or whether you are flying the Confederate flag, there's pain on both sides. There is. Okay? And I really believe that the way to true, authentic, genuine wholeness as a whole, I said before, I'm going to say it again. We are all one people. We might be having different experiences, and we might be fighting amongst each other, and oftentimes fighting amongst ourselves. There are so many distractions from what the real truth is, folks. And we can be agents of love and light. And we can, through courage and through genuine compassion and empathy, we can actually help to make this world a much more beautiful place for all of us. And some of the key is supporting those who are obviously in pain, those who are experiencing something very similar to us. Some of that is saying, no, we're not going to take this BS anymore, and speaking truth to power. Some of it is calling out where the darkness is showing up. Some of it is that. Some of it is also not allowing our hearts to be hardened. Not allowing our own hearts to be hardened, but seeking healing for all. Jesus said, listen, let me tell you something. Anybody can love somebody that loves you. That's not work. That's easy. Okay. You want to be on a spiritual journey? Well, shoot. The greater work is finding a space of love within your heart for the folks who aren't feeling you. That's not easy. And it's important to maintain boundaries at the same time. Finding that sweet spot, finding that balance of establishing and maintaining the healthy boundaries while at the same time holding a genuine place of love in the heart. And loving somebody doesn't mean that you like them. Loving somebody doesn't mean that you condone what they do. But it is a place of, I heard my teacher, a man that I love, adore, and highly respect, say something that was very profound. He's my healing teacher. He said, on the day that his 80th birthday was celebrated, said that unconditional love doesn't have anything to do with feelings. It's really unconditional acceptance, unconditional of another soul or another person for who and what they are and where they are. Okay. It doesn't mean that you're giving license to their errant ways. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you've got to have some warm, fuzzy feeling about them. It doesn't mean that either. But you're holding space within your heart for them to exist as the soul that they are. Okay? And people who are doing foul, jacked up stuff tend to not at all be in alignment with who they really are. Right? And so part of the work is to offer space for that to be reconciled, for that to be resolved. And I'm thankful to be a person who's been able to see a lot of miracles happen. Let me tell you something. The truth of the matter is that somebody no longer having back pain isn't really a miracle in and of itself. That really isn't the miracle. Somebody having their vision restored isn't really the miracle. We call these things medical miracles. Somebody's tumor disappearing isn't really the miracle. It's sweet that it happens. It's beautiful that it happens. It's wonderful that a person is able to have a more fulfilled life experience. But that ultimately, that's not the miracle. Turning water to wine is not a miracle. Walking on water is not a miracle. Parting the Red Sea is not a miracle. None of those things are really the real miracle. Those things are really just signs and wonders to get your attention for the message, and the delivery of the message and the reception of the message is where the miracle happens, because the real miracle is a changed heart. That's the real miracle. So no, I don't want people to be suffering with cancer or suffering with diabetes or arthritis or tendonitis or broken bones or whatever the case is. I don't want people to be suffering with that stuff on an individual level. I also don't want people to be suffering with being disconnected from the essence of who we really are. And that's even more important to me, both individually and collectively. All right. So that's pretty much all I've got for today. Anybody have any quick questions or comments before we sign off for today? It's always a joy and a privilege to be here. And I really do thank you all for showing up. I'm on a journey, and I believe that there's a reason that our lives have intersected, have crossed paths. I'm not so arrogant as to believe that I can do it all alone. Even with that healing that I was sharing with you about earlier, I wasn't even doing that alone. We were collectively working to bring that experience about for the brother-in-law and his family. And I believe that there is certainly space for a lot of good to be done. And the more people are working in the light, the more people are stepping it up and deciding to see ourselves and others through the lenses of love and wisdom and truth and understanding and compassion. I believe that serves us all that much better, right? I believe it serves us all that much better. Okay. I really do. I really do. And so I want to encourage all of us to genuinely and truly walk the path of wholeness. To genuinely and truly walk the path of wholeness. I believe that every soul ought to be free. And somehow a part of me is still bound as long as any of my brothers or any of my sisters in creation are still bound. We all climb together. We all climb together. All right. So remember, what we're about in this experience of life is we're working towards something better, right? We're all working towards that. We're all wanting something better. Ultimately, we're wanting to dwell in that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. It's not dependent upon external people, conditions, circumstances. None of those things are sustainable. But finding that within us, there's a whole universe that exists within us. And there are miracles that can be performed throughout the universe as a result of the inner work that we do. All right. God bless you. I love you. If you want to support the work that we're doing, financially, we're certainly welcome to do that. We appreciate that. We've got the Cash App going at the bottom of the screen. $ Royce F. Thomason. We appreciate that support if you feel so guided, and thank you to you who have supported. If you are wanting to join in this work, send me a direct message. If you have my phone number, send me a text message or a phone call. There's a lot of work to be done. The truth of the matter is there is a lot of work to be done. Jesus said 2,000 years ago, the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And so if you want to partner in terms of doing some of this work together, I'm certainly very much open to that. I've said before to people who've been through the Transcending the Matrix training, two of us coming together isn't 1 + 1. It isn't 1 + 1 + 1. but there's a synergistic effect that happens as a result of us coming together and working together, that where the whole far exceeds the sum of its parts. And there's great beauty that can happen in that, and allow a lot of power that can be demonstrated in that for the working of good on planet Earth. And that supports all of us. So anyway, God bless you all. I love you. I hope that you have a scrumptious rest of your Sunday. I am holding you all in sacred space and love and light, praying that beautiful things are happening with you today, that peace might abound in your soul more fully, that you may feel more empowered in your life experience, and that your soul might be 100% completely and freely self-expressed. Okay? All right. Look forward to catching you soon. God bless you. I love you. And ain't nothing you can do about it. Take care now.